an aligned view of who has what grant of authority related to that. So that's sort of a conversation about the 30,000-foot view. Let's drill down now to the 20,000-foot view. We should be able to take that strategy map and think of listing it down the left side of a spreadsheet. And across the top, we'll list your core process groupings. Now, of course, the intention of any process is to support the strategy. So I should be able to take a look at any of these processes and answer two questions. What is the impact of that process on that objective, and how well are we performing? Again, I'll give you a simple example. If we go back to McDonald's, what happens if you order a hamburger at McDonald's and they give you the wrong one? You order a Big Mac and they give you a quarter pounder. Well, they'll just give you another hamburger. In fact, you'll probably be able to keep the first one. So easy to solve that problem. Let's talk about another order fulfillment process. Let's say handing out babies at the hospital. Obviously, they've got to make sure, because that process is links to such an important strategic objective, that process needs to be delivered at a very high quality level. In other words, the impact, if you've got a process that impacts to a great extent a very important strategic objective, we have high expectations about how that process performs. If, on the other hand, you have a process that links to a low-weighted objective, my expectations aren't nearly as high. So if we can rate and rank our processes, we can begin to evaluate where we have opportunities in the organization. Let's take a look at this example. If we take a look at process 4, logistics, we can see that they link to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 processes, and 4 of them are green. So that's not bad. On average, they're performing okay. Other processes like demand generation, they've got a bigger issue. They link to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 processes as well, yet they only have 1 green, 3 yellows, and a red. So as we look at this vertically, we have an issue with demand generation that, as a leadership team, we should rally around and try to help them out. That's normal, and you can see that kind of thing in almost any organization currently. What we're trying to highlight here is the horizontal issues. If we take a thing like an objective like accelerate cash to cash, you can see that there's probably a good level of success possibility in the organization because all the processes that link to it are green. We may also be good at providing that shopping experience because, again, we've only got 1 yellow. But if we take a look at an objective like immediately available or everything is customizable, horizontally we see an issue. So even though logistics only had 1 red, it forms a perfect storm. Everyone else seems to have a red as they link to that objective as well. So what do you think the likelihood of that organization being successful at that strategic objective is? Not very good. What we're really doing is linking in, Lean or Six Sigma analysis, process analysis technique into the management structure to begin providing us the next level of detail view, the 20,000-foot view. In fact, as a leadership tool, we should be able to provide a score on how we're doing for each objective. So looking at those numbers as a graph, the length of the bar represents the level of process support we need to provide for I1. Everything is customizable. The blue portion represents our current capability, and the gold is a gap between our current capability and what the processes require. So if we're the leadership team of this organization and we needed to focus our attention, we should probably focus in on, say, C2, immediately available. It has a very large gap compared to, say, F1, accelerate cash to cash, because it has a very small gap. So this allows us to create alignment around the leadership team about where our priorities are and where we need to rally support. We can actually take a look at that as well. If we were to, instead of looking at our processes across the top of the grid, again, we'll list the strategic objectives down the left, but across the top, we're now talking about our major initiatives or projects for this year, and in fact, the resources each project requires. We can now begin to take a look at where each project impacts those strategic objectives. So, using the same technique, we can provide a score. We can take a look at each strategic objective and see, based on the portfolio of projects we're currently proposing, how much impact they might have on the gaps which are out there. Now, this is interesting and how we often take a look at projects, but we should really be taking a look at those projects against the background of where those strategic process performance gaps were. Remember that those blue bars showed us the level of current performance, and the gold bars were the gaps. So if I take that same chart and I just graph the gaps, the parts where we need to focus in on, then I combine those two charts, I see this. In this organization, I can see I have a huge gap immediately available, but not much focus on projects. On the other hand, I've got almost no gap on cash to cash, yet there's a fair amount of investment in projects. Or over here on everything is customizable, again, perhaps we have a misalignment of projects in our project portfolio. In fact, in the average organization, between 40 to 60% of the projects go away because we discover they're misaligned to the current strategy. They might have been great projects when they were launched, but our change in strategy means they're less relevant. Or we might have reached the tipping point with that project. We've already achieved significant benefits from it, and we don't need to continue in that journey. We now need to focus on something else. Or finally, the project might have been launched for the wrong reasons. It might have been for political reasons or, a member of the board's pet project, and we now need to take a little bit more logistical view, scientific view on whether we should be proceeding with that project or not. This provides sort of a level playing field as we look at those portfolio of projects. So let's go back to where we started off from. We should be able to now build that 20,000 foot view. We should be able to take an objective like everything is customizable and begin sorting out what that 20,000 foot view looks like by providing information on each of the core processes that touch that strategic objective. So if I take that everything is customizable, it should be able to drill into what are the core processes and projects which link up to that objective. And we should be able to drill into each one of those to begin to understand what it is that's causing the performance that we're observing. Again, this is a 20,000 foot view that allows leadership to begin focusing in on the things which have the greatest impact strategically and operationally on the organization. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail here, but you could see how we can now take the next step and grab any one of these operational objectives and begin building dashboards and analytics around them. That's a topic for another day. My goal was to try to help you put into context this information flow from the top of the organization to the bottom, and I'll consider that job done. But there's another view I want to give you of how this overall